played a clip of Sherrod Brown and Orrin Hatch, who was just so offended. You can't believe how offended this guy was that Sherrod Brown would claim that this tax cut is for the wealthy. And this is really basically the big story right now is what's going to happen with this tax plan and what's going to happen in the Senate. I mean, I don't know what your sense is, but from your perspective, what's the most egregious part of it?
Oh my God! Well, look, the estate tax rollback to me, and in fact, I don't even understand why we're not calling it, Ivanka's law, because really this is who it's for. And the idea that I listened to that piece with Orrin Hatch and Sherrod Brown, and Sherrod Brown was very good, I thought, in that clip. By the way, I was very impressed with the way that he sort of framed this whole thing, and the fact that he got under Orrin Hatch's collar, I think, is sort of a sign that they have a little problem. He was a little triggered by that. To me, I mean, obviously there are a bunch of things. Tom Cotton, who also known as Norman Bates, came in at the last minute and threw in this Obamacare repeal part. Apparently, he's behind that. He's sort of the new Ted Cruz of this particular Congress. The whole thing. I mean, there's really nothing in it that you can recommend. It's going to end up. I mean, every new analysis that they do of this plan shows that more and more middle class and poor people are going to be paying more, and it's going to benefit more and more wealthy corporations and wealthy individuals. And I mean, I think that you mentioned this earlier. That the most telling moment in everything was this. Their underlying and always their fundamental argument for these massive tax cuts for wealthy people is always that it's going to spur investment and make the economy grow, and we'll all be it's trickle-down economics, right, essentially. And Gary Cohn was giving a speech to a bunch of CEOs and said, how many of you are going to take this money and invest? And two people put their hands up, and he was shocked and stunned to find that they were not going to do it, and they're not. They don't make business decisions based on that. Oh, goody, we've got a little extra money. Let's hire some workers. I mean, that is just not how any of this works. It's not how any of this works. It's never been how any of this works. And sometimes you can stimulate the economy when there's some kind of a credit crunch, or you're in a financial crisis. Even that, just cutting taxes is rarely enough to really, quote, prime the pump in these situations, although, maybe it can loosen up some money. But for the most part, it is just not a very good way to do it, and it doesn't work that way. There's a reason why these companies are not investing, and it's not because they don't have the money. I mean, that's just not. Look at the stock market. I mean, I don't even understand how people can make that argument at this moment, that companies are really in need of money. It's just not the way it works. So, this whole thing is just, it's an opportunistic, kind of race to get this thing done, because it's the only thing they really care about. It's their religion is tax cutting, and I think that they feel that if they can't do this, I mean, Paul Ryan said it explicitly, if we can't do this, what good are we?
Right.
And that really is, I mean, that is their reason for existing in a political sense, and I just, I think that they're racing ahead. And I think one of the things that's most surprising to me about this is that it's so badly designed. That they didn't have this thing ready to go. I mean, they didn't even have tax cuts.
You know what's amazing? I mean, that's a great point. I mean, I remember in November of last year reading an interview with Paul Ryan, where the whole gist of it was like, we've been waiting for this. Like, we knew that even if it didn't happen, we are going to have everything, in the barrel. Do you remember that piece? I mean,
it's a dream of a lifetime.
And it was like, we've got all the bullets in the chamber, ready to load into the chambers, and this thing is such a mess. Like, I mean, I suppose there's somebody sitting there going like, "Oh, I know what one of the longstanding Republican principles, and this is going to be great politically, is to make the health expenses non-deductible now, or tuition or loans, college loans not deductible, or this tuition thing, and I mean, the amazing thing is that, I mean, look, I am not as concerned about the deficit as I think is sort of like the mainstream of political where the political ballast is in this country. But my fear about the deficit is only that it's going to be used as a way of cutting more things later, because frankly Democrats have sort of bought into this in the past. But I mean, the idea, and this is it, the Congressional Joint Committee on Taxation, which is basically the CBO for taxes, projected on Thursday that Americans earning $30,000 or less would see their taxes increase as a group beginning in 2021. Americans earning $75,000 or less would face large tax increases in 2027. Not to mention, I guess, and we can talk about this in a minute, the blue-red state divide. But that's amazing to me. Like, the idea of like lowered taxes for everybody, and they can't even get it together to lower taxes for everybody. Never mind on people who don't eat. Like, yes, we have a huge wealth inequality problem with the estate taxes. Like, I think we should be taxing everything over $10 million at like 90 cents on the dollar. But you would think at least they would deliver tax cuts for everybody as way to make it palatable, but they don't even seem to care about that.
Well, you remember that old saying that James Baker, the guy from Texas who was the Ronald Reagan's chief of staff and worked for the Bushes.
He said the Jews won't vote for us anyway.
The Jews, they don't vote for us anyway.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's what we're dealing with here. They had their constituency is, in their view, the only important constituency are these wealthy donors. They've been saying it out loud. I mean, that's another thing I can't believe. You've got actual reports of people telling the press, look, there's nothing I can do. My donors are demanding it. They're saying I've got to pass this thing. And I'm going, seriously, you're using that as an excuse. Okay, well, we're not, I guess it's honest. If nothing else, you're telling the media exactly what's going on. And I suspect that that's true. I mean, I think that their donors, these Republican donors, their wealthy benefactors, can see the handwriting on the wall. And they see this, that, they have elected a cretinous effing moron to be the president, and that it's going to be a short-lived majority that they have in both houses. And so they're saying, look, this is what we pay you for. Get in there and get this thing done. And for a lot of them, I think they genuinely want to do it. They actually believe they've been indoctrinated into this idea that tax cuts are great. I mean, listen to Orrin Hatch. I mean, Orrin Hatch certainly should understand that this is, that this is a bad plan. Let's just put it that way. I mean, let's just forget the religious dogma underneath the whole thing. But he should know. He's been around the Senate since, I don't know, the 1800s practically. He should know that this is a bad plan. The numbers don't add up. Nothing about it actually works as a piece of legislation. It's terrible. And the one in the Senate is not going to be any better than the one in the House. And no, they're not going to, knock out the changes in the conference. I mean, all of that, when you look at this particular Congress, it's obvious they have no clue how to do this. I don't know when it happened that Republicans lost the actual technical ability to put together a piece of legislation. But somewhere along the line, they obviously did. And, I guess I thought maybe they outsourced this stuff. Now, where's the Heritage Foundation? Don't they have some wonk sitting with green eye shades who could have put this thing together? But they don't. So here we are. And I just think that this is just a it's a kind of a missionary
Right.
kind of operation that they just they're just putting their heads down and hacking their way through the jungle because they just they've got to do this for the Lord. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense, and I have a hard time believing that they think that they really deep down think this is going to benefit them politically. I think some of this is just they're committing suicide and they know it.
Well, first off, I think that's a great point in terms of just about their technical competence, because certainly, back in the day of Tom DeLay, they were just as mean-spirited and interested in enriching the wealthy over the rest of us, but they knew how to write a piece of legislation. They knew how to count, get a whip count. And I do think to a certain extent that we've seen the ascendance of the conservative movement, which rewards their entire reward structure internally. Who makes the money are the sort of like the Breitbarts. I mean, people forget that Breitbart himself cared nothing about policy, bragged that he didn't care about policy. He didn't care about any of it. It was all a cultural war, and it was really just about winning in the context of the media. And they have moved so far in that direction that there doesn't seem to be any incentive structure for anybody to actually do any, even like, I don't know, evil work well. Like we played a clip of, I can't remember who was it, that she was in charge of one EPA committee. And she was refuting, I can't remember the details, she was refuting climate change, or she was talking about how much, she was with Sheldon Whitehouse, and Sheldon Whitehouse was asking her about, like, do you have any idea how much heat is trapped in the ocean? Like, how much scientists say this? And scientists say it's like over 90%, right, is or something, the excess heat is trapped in the ocean. And she didn't know she didn't even seem to know what he was referring to. And it's like, there used to be a time when people who would deny climate science or deny like evolution or whatever it was would at least do enough work so they could actually refute, like have an argument and know what was going to be brought up. They just seemed to just sort of show up and like, oh, whatever. I mean, she seemed to be tentative because she wasn't even sure which lie she should tell, which reinforced her climate denialism. Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos